Not that anyone ever, imagines that they find themselves in this type of situation. I mean, Oscom there in that story, I think it was a motorcycle accident. Who knows, and then people find themselves here and they think there's different varying levels of how people respond to it, but there's something else here. I don't know how invasive this brain surgery is, but the question comes, where are you on this, man?
I think there's a lot of factors that are like out of my control, but if I were in that situation and I got to maybe, wait a few years for that experimental technology to maybe get to version 2.0, I don't want to know how the brain software updates work, because like sometimes you reboot it and it's not the same as it was beforehand. Like we all know that experience with computers, like the updates, we all kind of dread them. I don't trust all aspects of that, but I will say this, like there's a lot of skepticism about AI because it seems like NFTs and crypto, and yes, it's being used as a buzzword by a lot of tech companies to lure venture capital money because they need that right now. But and people are like over promising what it can do, but I think it is best used in these situations. Like it helps people do what they're already doing a little bit easier. Like computers help me appear on a set and not have to make the long journey and trek onto the other side of Los Angeles County to join you in the studio right now, right? Like there's little advancements in technology that help us, and I think that's one of the more beautiful cases that AI has to offer. It's not going to solve everything, but that's really nice.
I mean, look at all the kinds of surgeries we already have, surgeries where people figure they're doing something just for better quality of life. And when it comes to something like moving, walking again, man, it's at the forefront, man. I love stuff like this, but again, like you said, I would have to wait for that second gen to come out, maybe even third. But I guess depending on your level of impatience and waiting for something to happen, maybe if the reminder comes up on the top right corner of your brain and it says, "Would you like to update today?" You're like, "No, remind me tomorrow."
Swipe
the hell out of here. I do it every day. Every day. My computer's probably last updated in 2018 or something like that. Who knows?
Every time I get something, it breaks.
Yeah, and then maybe my ability to walk might suffer from that too, because I'm lazy.
This is JR and Dan's Tech Talk.
Would you? Thanks, Dan, for joining me on Tech Talk today. We'll see as this stuff develops. I love things like this, but still, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate you here. Enjoy the rest of your week. How about you do that, please?
Pleasure. Take care.
Everyone at home also, please wait around, hang out, jump over to the Young Turks coming up next. And we'll be back on tomorrow for a Friday show. Man, it's been fast. We'll see you then.
Get some!
Turks, Jake Uger, Anna Kasparian with you guys on a fascinating Thursday evening. So we do have an amazing show for you guys. A little bit of schlippity schlap going on in the show. Things have been pummeled. And so hold, we're gonna get to it.
At length.
At length, we're gonna get to it at length. So disastrous news as always, but also some interesting news, fun news. Not only that, we're joyous warriors.
There's fun news?
There is, DeSantis.
Oh, there is fun news.
There is fun news.
Yes.
Okay, let alone Flat Earth Dave. Okay, no, you got, no, guys, you can't miss Flat Earth Dave. You can't miss him.
The country's in a lot of trouble, okay? It's being run by all sorts of goofballs and incompetent goons.
Yeah.
And what can you really do other than laugh about it at this point?
Right, plus we're here to straighten their asses out.
We are,
okay?
yes.
So, and we're here with you guys, our members, that make all this possible. You guys are awesome. So you know what? Let's do this.
Let's do it. We begin with some potentially concerning news, although this has not been confirmed. Well, according to a disturbing leak, the CIA believes that Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is considering a preemptive war on Iran in an effort to deter Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Now, the CIA does not know for sure based on this leak. So who's to say what the reality of this situation is? But I will say we do trust the source of this report. It was not the New York Times, it was not the Washington Post. The source of this report was Ken Klippenstein over at The Intercept. And the reporting is concerning to say the least, because should this happen, should the prime minister of Israel decide to do a strike on Iran, the United States government is already on the record in support of that effort. So let's give you the details. Before we get to the leak, we need to know about how the leak was obtained in the first place. I think that's an important part of the story. So the leaked document first came to our attention via a report from Ken Klippenstein in The Intercept. And it doesn't seem that there are many other publications writing about this, except the leak was first reported on in April by an Israeli news site called Ynet. Ynet reported that they obtained the document through Jack Teixeira's Discord leaks. So remember, Jack Teixeira was the young man who was the head of this small Discord group where he somehow had access to classified documents and was sharing those classified documents with other individuals within that Discord channel. Now, here's the document in question. There it is, and you can't read it, but I'll tell you exactly what it says in just a moment. So, if you're wondering whether we can trust the leak, again, for one, Ken Klippenstein's reporting about it. Also, the document does contain specific military terms like FISA, meaning that it was dealt with by a special court that authorizes sensitive surveillance for the American intelligence community. There were some elements to this document that were questionable. For one, it refers to Benjamin Netanyahu as the president of Israel as opposed to the prime minister of Israel. That concerns me. I think it would be strange if the CIA didn't know that he's a prime minister, not a president. But nonetheless, here are some important excerpts from the document itself. On February 20th, Israel conducted a large-scale air exercise, probably to simulate a strike on Iran's nuclear program and possibly to demonstrate Jerusalem's resolve to act against Tehran. Earlier this month, the IAEA detected trace quantities of near weapons-grade uranium in one of Iran's enrichment facilities, approaching a declared Israeli red line. So let me just pause for a second and remind you all that there was a deal in place. It involved the United States, Iran, and multiple other European countries. And that Iran nuclear deal ensured that Iran was no longer developing its, nuclear program, its enriched uranium. And they never admitted that they were developing or using enriched uranium for nuclear weapons. However, the United States was able to negotiate under the Obama administration and ensure that they were not developing nuclear weapons. However, under the Trump administration, he comes in, he rips up the Iran nuclear deal, which paves the way for Iran to develop nuclear weapons because we didn't hold up our side of the deal. Let me continue. CIA, according to this leaked document, does not know Israel's near-term plans and intentions. Israel may wait to see US and international reaction to the IAEA's findings regarding Iran's nuclear program and whether Iran's supreme leader will authorize uranium enrichment to weapons grade before deciding whether to take action. And finally, it says that Israeli president, again, he's the prime minister, but that's what the document says. Israeli President Netanyahu probably calculates Israel will need to strike Iran to deter its nuclear program and faces a declining military capability to set back Iran's enrichment program. So again, this leaked document, it's not confirmed enough for me, right? Yeah. However, the response to this from the United States government is what concerns me. I want to hear what you have to think, what you have to say about this, Cenk, and I'll tell you what I mean.
So look, the document's very important. The reason we keep saying that it's by Ken Klippenstein is because he has excellent sources and that have proven to be correct over and over again in the national security apparatus. So to me, the document is just a small piece of the puzzle because the other things that the administration has said publicly already confirmed that we've given Israel the green light. And I need you to be clear about what we gave them the green light for. Go ahead and start a war in the Middle East. And we're gonna back you up and we're gonna go fight that war for you. So let me give you things that are already public, so there's no dispute about this. Jake Sullivan, who's the national security advisor.
We have a video of him talking about that, so let's go to that video.
We are also engaging Iran diplomatically regarding its nuclear program, and we continue to believe that it was a tragic mistake to leave the deal with nothing at all to replace it. But we have made clear to Iran that it can never be permitted to obtain a nuclear weapon. As President Biden has repeatedly reaffirmed, he will take the actions that are necessary to stand by this statement, including by recognizing Israel's freedom of action.
Guys, so him saying we're never gonna let Iran have a nuclear weapon is not big news. Okay, so that's what they often say. The question is how, right? The very last thing he said was absolutely critical. He said that includes giving Israel freedom of action. What that means is they can bomb Iran. And once they start that war, we are going to back them 100%. So they now have a giant flashing green light. And you saw it with your own eyes there. Freedom of action, that's exactly what it means. You could ask any person who's involved in foreign policy, etc. We're saying go, okay? Now that's insane, but there's more. I wanna go to graphic 5. This is our ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides. He says, as President Joe Biden has said, this is what he said earlier, we will not stand by and watch Iran get a nuclear weapon, number one. Number two, he said all the options are on the table. Number three, Israel can and should do whatever they need to deal with, and we've got their back. That is not unclear at all. That is a giant green light. Go ahead and start a war with Iran. We would love to engage in another disastrous war in the Middle East. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq, and its military is far more capable. And by the way, there's no evidence that they're developing nukes, none. And number 3, guys, not only is there no evidence that they're developing nukes, we can end their nuclear program tomorrow by getting back into the same exact deal that Obama signed.
Exactly.
So why wouldn't Biden do that? Here's an excellent clue, graphic number 6. In 2009, after then Vice President Biden said, quote, Israel can determine for itself what they decide to do relative to Iran, i.e. freedom of action. Obama clarified that his administration was, quote, absolutely not giving Israel a green light to attack Iran. Now I give you that because that's the contrast. So I got 1,000 issues with Obama too, but in this case, he said we are not giving a green light, and then he made a deal that took away any nuclear capability that Iran had. Perfectly done, right? Biden, meanwhile, even back then is itching for war, Remember, he voted for the Iraq war. He's basically been a warmonger his whole life, right? And so he's like, no, give him freedom of action, green light. And Obama has to reel him back in. And now that he's president, he's like, oh, fantastic. Let's give him a green light and we can do another insane, lunatic war in the Middle East.
Yeah, and if you take a step back and you look at the political landscape overall, right? Domestic policy is tied to foreign policy. If you take a look at the negotiations that are needlessly taking place among Democrats and Republicans in regard to the debt ceiling, notice how the Republican Party wants to freeze spending on everything, with the exception of defense. They want to increase spending on defense moving forward. Why do they want to do that? And so I think that they're eventually going to get what they want because Democrats are pretending like, they're backing us into a corner. They're holding the debt ceiling hostage. You have some progressives saying, why are we negotiating with economic terrorists? Jamal Bowman, for instance, was quoted as saying that today, and I agree with him on that. But the important thing to remember is that corporate Democrats are pretending like they have to negotiate with Republicans on this. And in the end, they're gonna give the Republican Party what they want. There will be a spending freeze when it comes to everything that benefits ordinary Americans here in the United States, with one exception, and that would be spending on defense. And it's concerning because, look, first of all, Biden ran on, can you believe what Trump did and pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal? I'm gonna make sure that we get back in. Of course, he didn't do that. He reneged on that promise. And there seems to be some frustration that the endless sanctions against Iran have failed. They want regime change in Iran.
Yeah, when are they gonna get it through their thick skulls, unless they're complete and utter liars, which is not only possible, but likely. But if they genuinely believe that, when has sanctions ever worked in a situation like this? It didn't work in Iraq, it didn't work in North Korea. It's when you have someone who's basically a dictator and the Grand Ayatollah fits that bill in Iran. They don't have fair elections in Iran where anybody can run and anybody can win, anybody can have freedom of the press or speech, obviously, right? In a situation like that, sanctions never ever work. And they're always an excuse for war. Oh, we tried sanctions. What are we supposed to do now? Invade them now? You know it doesn't work. But even more so in this case, you know that the deal that they made with Iran to get their all nuclear material out of Iran worked.
It worked, yep.
It 100% worked, and it was a democratic deal. It was one of the things I gave Obama tremendous credit for. So why don't you just go back into the same exact deal? Remember, the guy who ended the deal was Trump boogeyman. So why is Biden doing the same exact thing as Trump? And so look, if you watch mainstream media, they'll tell you, no, Biden's an angel on everything and Trump's the devil on everything. But really, because look, I hate Trump and he's wrong on 997 things out of 1,000, right? But on this, by the way, we once violated their airspace, Iran's, while Trump was president. And we went in with a fighter jet and a drone. The Iranians could have shot down both and killed our pilot and probably taken the material that we had on the plane, including the intelligence that built that plane, okay? And they chose not to, they shot down the drone. The fact that they shot down the drone shows that they could have shot down the jet, right? So the Pentagon, which are filled to the rim with warmongers, were like, all right, great, let's bomb the middle of Iran, and it would only kill 150 civilians. Jeez. And to Donald Trump's credit, he said, no, that's disproportionate. So we did not do an attack inside Iran. Now, that is a very rare thing that Donald Trump got right. But our job is to be honest with you and deliver the actual news. So look at Trump showing restraint there, maybe the one and only time, but give him credit for that. Now, again, context for Biden, he got us out of Afghanistan. We gave him a world of credit for that. And at that point, it looked like, hey, maybe he's not a warmonger. Maybe he's gonna withdraw these troops and end these endless wars. But here we go, now endless funding into Ukraine. Again, Ukraine deserves help, right? But the question is how much, but those defense contractors, they have Biden 100% wrapped up.
Right.
So they're getting rich over there, they're getting rich with extra defense spending, and now they're flirting with what would be, if you thought Iraq was bad, what would be the most disastrous war of our lifetime,
right?
With Iran.
And with Ukraine, yes, I mean, I don't have a problem with the United States assisting Ukraine in defending itself. if simultaneously there is an effort to engage in diplomatic negotiations and peace talks with Russia. But it's become abundantly clear that the United States government has not only avoided that, they have discouraged that. And that allows for the war to continue, much to the chagrin of the American people who end up spending the money for that, spending our resources, which we could be using here to help Americans who need it, and obviously to the benefit of defense contractors. One final thing I want to mention that was apparent in Ken Klippenstein's reporting here: the United States has been doing more and more provocative military exercises with Israel. So as Klippenstein writes, in January, just weeks before Israel's secret exercise referenced in the intelligence report, the US and Israel conducted what the Defense Department touted as their largest joint military exercise in history, called Juniper Oak. The exercise involved electronic attack, suppression of enemy air defenses, strike coordination, and reconnaissance, which experts said are exactly what the US and Israel would need to conduct a successful kinetic attack on Iran's nuclear program.
And I have one more thing I'd like to add too. So sometimes governments put out retired folks that were in their national security apparatus to test the waters, right? They'll put out a statement and go, hey, he's not in government anymore, right? But hey, this statement's out there, how are people reacting to it? Well, it looks like Israel did that earlier this month because they put retired Israeli Defense Forces Brigadier General Amir Avivi out there to say, quote, Israel might have to deal with the Iranian nuclear program. This will mean an Israeli attack on Iran, which will probably result in a regional war. They're flat out saying it, and then we're giving them the green light. When the Democrats and the mainstream media lie to you and say there was nothing they could have done, remember this moment. They definitely could have said no, just like Obama did. We are not giving you the green light. You are not to start a war in the Middle East and have us pay the bill, not just with our dollars and cents from American taxpayers, but in blood with American boys and girls dying over there. Hell no is the answer. Hell no. It's so easy to end their nuclear program. Just rejoin the deal. Yep. But they will not do it because they don't care about the nuclear program. They just want the war.
We're gonna take a break. When we come back, we'll focus a little on domestic policy, including what congressional Republicans have cooking up when it comes to more tax cuts for the rich.
On TYT, one quick super chat. Mikey 3343 says, is going to war at least in part Biden's attempt to improve his re-election prospects? Don't incumbents typically win re-election during hot wars? Look, I thought about that too. And look, there's a ton of different influences there. Might that be an influence? It certainly might. And remember, Biden is a very old school politician, right? So what do politicians in the 1990s think? They think if you start a war, you can't lose. That is very traditional 1990s thinking. That's Biden 101, right? So he's, by the way, he's totally wrong. This country's gonna go nuts if he starts a war in Iran, okay? So, because you know why? Because the right wingers don't want it. Once the right wingers don't want it and a Democratic president starts it, then we're gonna have a real rebellion on our hands. Because the left is, they never, honestly, I mean, God, you know me, I want the left to be the strongest thing on earth. But when they are opposed to something, no one in power cares. But when the right wing is opposed to something, that's gonna be an issue. So he's, as usual, miscalculating if that's his primary calculation. But remember, he always wanted the war. Remember, Obama had to reel him back in 2009. He's just like his best friend, John McCain. He's always been a warmonger, okay? That's why Afghanistan was so shocking. That's why we gave him so much credit for withdrawing from Afghanistan. It was absolutely the most amazing, like the most unexpected thing I'd ever seen from Biden, but he's back to his old tricks. And look, guys, the number one reason for all of this is very clear. Money from the military-industrial complex. Defense contractors absolutely buy almost all of our politicians. And then they buy the media to tell you, oh no, they are really concerned about regional security, and pretend that there's anything but money involved. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, writes in, I'm much too old. Given my life experience, I question the CIA's reason for leaking this possibility. Now I'll have to think about what the US will gain from this fear-mongering. Mickey C, it's super easy. They're testing the water just like Israel is. And by the way, the reaction from mainstream media is like, what? I don't.
No reaction, they're not even reporting on it.
Nothing at all.
Right, which is interesting, right? It's interesting that, I mean, the New York Times loves to report on this kind of stuff, especially if the CIA is specifically leaking this kind of stuff to them. It's interesting that they've decided not to report on this at all.
No pushback from mainstream media, not 1%. The left, where are they?
I mean, credit to Ken Klippenstein for drawing attention to it. But again, it's not just about the leak itself, it's about what the United States has already preemptively said on the record in terms of greenlighting anything Israel would want to do in terms of starting a war with Iran.
Look, nobody's, if they're testing the waters, what they just saw is that the water is warm. No one's gonna object to them, at least before the war, because the Republicans are also all nearly 100% corrupt. So they don't mind either. All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys. Also, Vincent Morales and Daniel, they're American heroes. They just became Young Turks members and helped to make our voice stronger. They did that by hitting the join button below the video on YouTube. You could do it as well at tyt.com/join. I want to do one point of clarification on something I was saying during the social media break in a question to answer to one of our members. Look, guys, sometimes I'll say Republican or Democrat. I'm going to try to be as clear as I can, because the Republican voters and the Republican politicians are completely different. The Democratic voters and the Democratic politicians are completely different. I write all about it in my book. So when I say the Republicans are nearly all corrupt in the context of greenlighting this war with Israel, I mean the politicians. The voters do not want it, okay? And like, no one is harsher on Republican voters than I am. But I can read polls. They don't want a war in the Middle East, but their politicians are as corrupt as anyone on the planet Earth. And since they take that defense contractor bribes, they want it, and that's a giant difference. All right, Anna.
This story is amazing, except it's unsurprising. So, new Politico reporting indicates that congressional Republicans are currently cooking up a plot to provide nearly $3 trillion in additional tax cuts for the rich. Now, this reporting came in the form of a newsletter that Politico puts out, and here's what we know about it according to Common Dreams and their report. So Jake Johnson writes that Republicans on the House Ways and Means Committee hope to finish work on their emerging tax legislation by June 16th, which of course is just over 2 weeks after the so-called X date, the day on which the Treasury Department expects the federal government to run out of money to cover its obligations unless Congress raises the debt limit or President Joe Biden acts unilaterally, which we all know he will not do. Now, here's what Politico's weekly tax letter specifically says, quote, key parts of the tax cut package will likely include a full restoration of research and development deductions, full bonus depreciation, removing caps on business interests expenses or expensing, and a doubling of the $1.08 million limitation on the Section 179 deduction, which, like bonus depreciation, allows a company to deduct an asset's cost up front. Now, you should know a little bit about the person drafting this legislation. He is a longtime Republican lawmaker who has been on this effort, wanting to cut taxes because it not only benefits his corporate donors, it benefits himself. Representative Vern Buchanan, that's his legislation aimed at making the 2017 Trump GOP tax cuts for individuals and some businesses permanent, also has a strong likelihood of getting marked up in a broader package. And Buchanan's bill, known as the TCJA Permanency Act, currently has nearly 100 Republican co-sponsors in the House. And I just want to remind you all that Republicans claim that they're concerned about the deficit. They're worried about government spending. They're worried about how that would exacerbate the deficit. And they're saying that while they simultaneously work on legislation that would provide additional tax cuts to the rich and to corporations. And look, this is a little scheme that Buchanan's been doing for a long time. I direct you to a video from 2010 where he was whining and crying about the same deficit-related concerns. Let's watch.
We talk about Greece and their challenges. We're the next Greece if we don't balance the budget and get serious about our national debt and our deficits. Last year, $1.4 trillion in deficit. This year, we're expected to exceed $1.5 trillion. We need to balance the budget now. My first year, 3.5 years ago, I introduced a balanced budget amendment that just says we don't spend more and we take in. We need to do that or we're going to be the next Greece.
He's also one of the wealthiest members of Congress, so of course he stands to benefit from those sweet, sweet tax cuts. Cenk.
Okay, so guys, the issues here are indisputable. So if you say you care about the deficit, proposing a tax policy that would add $3.5 trillion, way more than you're cutting, by the way, even if you get those cuts in the debt ceiling fight, cannot possibly be justified with being concerned about the deficit or the debt. So if reporters were honest, they would say, no, the Republican Party does not prioritize the deficit or debt, because it's a fact. You can't say, hey, I want to put a $3.5 trillion hole in it, but golly gee, I care a lot about it. No, it shows you 100% clarity that it's not about the deficits, it's about wealth transfer and wealth redistribution. And it's taking from the lowest, people who need food stamps, etc., and giving to the highest. So 2/3 of the tax cuts go to the top 20%. The top 20% on average the top 1% on average get 25 times bigger cut than the middle 20%.
That's right.
Okay, so this is another giant tax cut for the rich. Now, why don't Republicans tell the truth? Because how do you think that would play politically? Guys, we'd like to rob the poorest and the middle class and the working class in this country to give it to our donors, the richest people in the country. Do you think that plays well? Of course not. So why don't reporters report facts about it? They're basically, when they don't, they are doing propaganda and marketing on behalf of the Republican Party.
Look, I get a little irritated with Cenk when he makes broad criticisms of the media without being specific. However, this is a perfect example of Cenk being 1000% correct, because Politico didn't report this through their usual channels. So if you go to Politico's website and you're looking for an article about this, you'd be hard pressed to find it. They sent this in the form of a newsletter, okay? Which means you'd have to sign up for the newsletter in order to get the reporting about this. Thanks to Common Dreams replicating the reporting, we're able to know about it. You're able to read about it if you're not signed up for Politico's newsletter. It is ridiculous to hide this incredibly important information from the American people by not reporting it through usual channels and instead doing it through a newsletter.
And it's not just about Politico. Hey, at least they reported it, right? So in some way, it's about the rest of all of the media. Wait a minute. Why? Like, if you can see it from now on. You don't have to worry about whether I'm right about the past. So you will see articles about the debt ceiling fight. You will see stories about it on TV. See if any of the reporters, the news actors on television, or any of the so-called hard journalists at the New York Times, etc., all point out, hey, by the way, they don't actually care about the debt, because in 2 weeks they're going to propose a $3.5 trillion hole in the debt to give money to their rich donors. You have to point that out for context. If you don't give that context, Instead, by the way, you will actively see them write, the Republicans who say they care a lot about the deficit, the Republicans who say they care a lot about the debt. Well, that's just, you're lying on their behalf. Okay, guys, I'll give you more evidence. Trump put $7.8 trillion onto the debt. He created about $8 trillion hole. So how can you possibly say that you care about deficits and debt when you created that hole? Bush and Trump, just their tax cuts, not everything else, just their tax cuts. $10 trillion. The great majority of it going to the rich. So the guys who care about the deficit and the debt had $10 trillion, our money, okay, overall, to just give out. No, it's okay, just give it back to the rich. They need, because the poor rich need more.
So let me give you some more data in regard to who these tax cuts would actually benefit. Cenk had mentioned some data earlier, but I want to just really reemphasize that because this is just meant to redistribute wealth from the poorest to the richest. So let's go to graphic 4 here. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy estimated earlier this month that just 1% of the benefits of the TCJA Permanency Act, those are the tax cuts that Buchanan wants to pass, would go to the poorest fifth of Americans. The richest fifth, by contrast, would receive nearly 2/3 of the tax benefits. Also, this is going to cost the United States government quite a bit of money. So for instance, the Congressional Budget Office estimated last week that extending the individual provisions of the 2017 tax cuts for the rich, which are currently set to expire in 2025, would add $2.5 trillion to the deficit that Republicans claim to care so much about over the next decade. And I should remind you that the original law made the cut to corporate tax rates from 35% to just 21% permanent, okay? And by the way, Bernie Sanders took to Fox News to write an op-ed and air his grievances about this, and I'm glad that he did it through Fox News, right? You should let the Republican voters know about what their elected officials are up to. He writes, over and over again, we hear from the Republican leadership about how deeply concerned they are about the large deficit and national debt that we have. If that's the case, why are they pushing for an extension of the Trump tax breaks that disproportionately benefit the wealthy and large corporations and would increase the federal deficit by 3.5 trillion? I mean, I think that it's smart to communicate that. I just wish that the entirety of the Democratic Party were doing what Bernie's doing in trying to get this information out to all voters, not just Democratic voters, but also Republican voters who do not like these tax cuts for the rich. The tax cuts polled poorly in 2017 as Trump was trying to garner support for them, but weird that most Democrats are silent about this, no?
So guys, look, on the polling of the tax cuts, 76% of Americans want tax increases on the rich. 3/4 of the country, including a majority of Republicans, say, I want you to increase taxes on the rich. What did Trump do? The exact opposite. What did Bush do? The exact opposite. What did Obama and Biden do? The exact opposite when they made Bush's tax cuts permanent, okay? So no matter who's in charge, they do the exact opposite of what 3/4 of the country wants, because 100% of their donors want tax cuts. And that's how this game is played. So that's among the reasons why I get so frustrated with the media. But I'm gonna give you one comment from one of our members because it's a great point. And I wanna give credit to Ilhan Omar too. She did a great job of fighting back against this as well. So a lot of times I ask progressives to fight back and I pull my hair out that they don't. In this case, they are fighting back and they're doing a good job with the rhetoric, etc., and pointing out the inconsistency. Lou B writes in, no chance in hell that Biden and Democrats will bludgeon the GOP with the $3.5 trillion tax cuts, and then they split for the weekend ahead of the default Dems can't fight. See, that's why I love our members, tyt.com/join to become a member, because that's such a great point. Why doesn't Biden, in the middle of the debt ceiling fight, go, hey, listen, Politico wrote a story about it. Apparently, they have this plan, and it's absolutely true they do, that they're gonna put a $3.5 trillion hole in the deficit. Well, then obviously I'm not negotiating with them on the debt ceiling because they don't care about the debt.
100%, yep.
Guys, that would be so easy. And it's not like it can't be done. Bernie just did it in the op-ed in the Fox News. It's the easiest thing in the world. You're not missing anything. Biden is choosing not to do that. So if you're a normie Democrat who was brainwashed by mainstream press into thinking that Biden's a big fighter for you, okay, then I got a question for you. Is it that Biden is the worst politician in the world and he can't figure out the simplest thing ever? Hey, why am I gonna give you guys all these cuts from the average American when you're gonna give it to the rich instead? Or is he in on it? He's always been in favor of those tax cuts for the rich, and he's always been in favor of cutting spending for the average American. That is, you can look it up. That is the exact history of his career, but mainstream media kept that from you during the 2020 primaries because they said, oh no, you can't hurt the guy who's leading. And they pretended that he was, quote, FDR 2.0. What a freaking joke.
All right, let's move on to some other news today, including this.
We need to go after Target in a very serious way. It is time for decent, ordinary Americans who do not believe in radical ideas in either direction to just say, I will not allow my kids to be corrupted by this trans agenda.
Just like the unhinged jihadist he liked to fearmonger about, Charlie Kirk and other far-right conservatives are going after Target because they disagree with the merchandise being sold in celebration of Pride. Let's see what else he has to say.
And it looks, Target looks like they're caving. They say they're putting the clothes in the back. I want Target to go bankrupt. I want them to close. I want Chapter 11, okay?
Somebody else can buy them up.
No,
somebody conservative, because there could be a bunch of empty buildings.
Yeah, no, I want them to go Chapter 11. People say, what does success look like? Chapter 11, okay? I want skull and bones all the way down to the absolute nails of the stores. Yep, that's the only thing they understand is force. Pain is a teacher.
Now, conservatives have an interesting strategy in getting various corporations to heel and give into what they demand. In this case, it has to do with anything that seems to support the LGBTQ community. And unfortunately, this has already led to individuals going into Target stores and causing some damage, which is why Target has made some decisions already that appears that they're ceding ground to what Republicans want. Target said it was concerned about threats impacting our team members' sense of safety and well-being while at work after some customers had screamed at employees and thrown the Pride-themed merchandise on the floor. So I bring you, unfortunately, 24-year-old Ethan Schmidt, who takes the rhetoric that you just heard from Charlie Kirk and basically incites violence. He brings up the ante, and you're about to hear what I'm referring to. We're gonna hear from him, and then we're gonna show you what he did at a Target store, I believe in Arizona.
We're giving you a heads up that, we're gonna be coming after you hard. I've already exposed you guys pretty good, but, this is gonna be next level stuff, so.
Price wins, LGBT loses.
Yeah. I also like to hunt LGBT supporters on my free time. That's one of my favorite pastimes, We're also, we're going to be going on hunting expeditions pretty soon. Hunting the LGBT supporters across Arizona and Phoenix. So, keep an eye out for that because, you're not safe.
But I would venture to say that people aren't safe when this guy's around. Here's an example of what he did at a Target store in Arizona.
That there is no insert. There's nothing on it. So.
It's disgusting. That's devil worship. That's devil worship. That's devil worship.
Now, Target has already made some decisions about the merchandise. Some of the merchandise, they're moving from the front of the store to the back of the store. There will also be some items that they will no longer sell as a result of this. And they're citing concerns about the safety of their employees. I've got more details on this, but Cenk, I wanted to get your thoughts first.
Guys, this is really bad. So these are vigilantes and they're telling you just saw it on video. We're gonna hunt you down. You should not feel safe. What are people in the LGBTQ community supposed to think? How are they not supposed to panic over that? How are they not supposed to defend themselves over that? So now when you got people talking about defending themselves against these kind of vigilante thugs, we're gonna have chaos soon. This is gonna be really, really bad. You see, there's no check on them. There's no cops, there's no nothing. Nobody ever gets arrested, right? So they just keep bullying everybody, bullying. And they're filled with hatred. Well, there was excuses in the past. Oh no, we're not against gay people. It's just that the lifestyle and blah 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 and the kid blah. They used to have excuses. They don't even have excuses anymore. They just go, we hate LGBT people and we're hunting them. And if you're in favor of LGBT, you put a rainbow somewhere saying like, oh, I don't despise gay people. Well, that's it. We're coming to hate on you. We're coming to destroy you. How dare you not hate gay people? Okay, look, if you're a Republican and you don't like that, you got a funny way of showing it. So when you know how consistent we are. There was a deranged person on the so-called left earlier this week that went after a reporter with a machete, and we said it was totally unacceptable and that they are not part of us, right? And they did physical force against these guys who were anti-choice on their campus, et cetera, and we spoke out against it, right? Republicans, where are you? Nobody's reining these guys in.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, that's part of the problem. I mean, you'll see some, I guess at this point, they would be considered moderate Republicans pushing back against this on Twitter. But other than that, I mean, they're getting encouraged by people like Charlie Kirk, people who like Matt Walsh, right? And there's also this issue of misinformation in regard to what Target is selling in the first place. So I want to get to that. Now, as a result of everything that's been going on, this week Target became the latest company to rethink its approach after facing criticism for its Pride collection, which included clothes and books for children that drew outrage from some on the right. The retailer, as I mentioned earlier, decided to move its Pride displays, including rainbow striped collared shirts, yellow hoodies reading "Not a Phase," and baby clothing and accessories from the entrances of some Target stores around the country and place them in the back. Now, in a statement, Target said this: given the volatile circumstances, we are making adjustments to our plans, including removing items that have been at the center of the most significant confrontational behavior.
No, but guys, I gotta jump in on that because that just rewards them.
Okay, let me get to, you're right, it encourages what we're seeing.
They're gonna do it again and again and again.
But the thing that these companies care about more than appeasing any side of the political aisle is money.
Of course.
And what's surprising to me is that while boycotts, traditionally speaking, have not been effective, they have been effective in regard to the whole Bud Light debacle and also with Target. I don't think that they're making this decision because they care about their workers. I'm keeping it real. I think they're making this decision because their stock took a huge hit.
Oh, their workers. Oh, no. Of course, no.
Let me give you the numbers though.
Yeah, okay. No, of course it's about the money, but I got strong thoughts on that too, so go ahead.
So Target apparently lost $9 billion in market value since angry social media users called for a boycott of the Minneapolis-based retailer over its rollout of the Pride collection featuring LGBTQ-friendly clothing for children. So this wasn't really a boycott, but the stock value took a hit, right? So a week ago, Wednesday, before the controversy erupted, Target's stock closed at $160.96 a share, giving the big box chain a market capitalization of $74.3 billion. As of early trading on Thursday, however, shares of the company were trading off 1% at $141.76.
Okay, so guys, couple of things here. So number one, I'm officially changing my position on right-wing boycotts, and I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why it's also overhyped. But first, in the past, right-wing boycotts never, ever worked. They would do these things. Oh, Disney, way before DeSantis. Disney doesn't hate gay people enough. That boycott was like 20 years ago, right? And they went after Disney. Disney held strong, and their sales did not go down 0.1%, completely and utterly ineffectual. But that was before the Republican base got radicalized and before social media spread that message so much more effectively than some rando evangelical Christian group out of Sarasota that nobody ever heard from, okay? So now when the Charlie Kirks and the Matt Walshes have put the message out and they say to their radicalized base, okay, we're hating Target, we're hating Bud Light because they don't hate gay people, it works. So now, does that mean that every company should panic? No, it depends on what your demographics are. Remember, Nike went right in their grill and brought in the guy they hate most, Colin Kaepernick, to do a giant ad campaign. And in the beginning, their valuation dipped, and then it skyrocketed when sales numbers actually came in. Because Nike's demographic is young, which is very progressive, so that worked. If your demographic is old, Bud Light, I don't know what Target's demographics are. Then, yeah, okay, then the right wingers are older, and that might hurt your sales. So, but there's one factor that nobody talks about, which is that this initial dip for Target and Nike and all of them is at the stock market. It's not based on any actual sales. It's the reaction that super right-wing Wall Street traders have to the news. Remember, almost everyone on Wall Street is right-wing. So when they hear, oh, the right wing's mad about Target, whoa, this is gonna destroy Target. Everybody sell, 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 because it's their perspective. They did the same exact thing to Nike and they were dead wrong. And then when the sales numbers came in, they turned around, okay? So unfortunately, because of how right-wing Wall Street is, and because now these boycotts are more effective, you're gonna see so much more of them. Now in reality, the left wing should be doing peaceful boycotts of companies that corrupt our politics by bribing politicians.
Be every single one of them, Cenk.
I know.
They would never shop again.
I know, but we can go one by one. But we got no leadership on our side. So instead, we have these monsters running. And now to Charlie Kirk. So he said they should go to Chapter 11. He started talking about it in the context of finance. So I'm giving you that context, okay? But then when you see this violence already happening, when you know your base is totally deranged, when you know 28% of Republicans already say they think it's time for violence, and you have seen right-wing violence time after time after time, when you say you should use force, and I want to see skull and bones everywhere, do you think that maybe some people might misinterpret that?
He didn't say, okay, but let's be fair. He said skull and bones, meaning like he wants to watch Target fail. Right? Like
no, I just said, he said it in a financial context. But do you think every Charlie Kirk viewer is gonna understand that?
I get it.
He's egging them on, going, oh, Chapter 11, skull and bones. I want skull and bones everywhere. He knows his audience is gonna misinterpret that. He wants them to misinterpret it. No, I give no quarter to Charlie Kirk. He's a terrible guy and he's doing it on purpose and he loves the idea of vigilante violence. Sick, absolutely sick. We're gonna have nonstop fighting in the streets. Our social fabric is completely decaying. So if I'm LGBTQ, what am I gonna do? Just sit there and wait for them to attack me? Look, I don't want the violence. I think the violence is disastrous. I don't think the left should go anywhere near that. But vigilante stuff is gonna break out everywhere now. And by the way, no one's getting protected in the streets either, okay? I don't know where the cops are. Both the left and the right now hate the cops, so they're nowhere to be found. People are already attacking each other in the streets. This is just, chaos is coming, guys.
I mean, we're there, we're already there. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, we have more for you, including a positive update in regard to one of the key organizers of January 6th.
All right, back on TYT. Amace 54321 in the membership section says, can you imagine the reaction if a leftist said he loves hunting Christians? It would be the biggest news story in the country, right? And if any leftist said, "Oh, I want to see you guys use force, and I want to see skull and bones," they talk about it 24/7 on Fox News, the deranged left-wing anarchists, blah, 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 etc. Right? Antifa, they're gonna kill us all. You attack them first, right? But the right wing, we're used to it. They're allowed to be monsters. Well, this is gonna end very, 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 very poorly. Little Mac McGee writes in, "Don't kid yourself. Dude is doing this stuff for clicks and views for as much as anything else, and shame on Target for cowering down." No, I know why he's doing it. He profits off of egging on violence. And his audience loves to hear that. That's why he does it. The problem is that it's deeply irresponsible, and they will actually go and do that violence. And he won't care at all, because he's deeply immoral. Textan says, "Not sure why Target doesn't just post a sign up front that vandals will be prosecuted right along with shoplifters. Have a cop ready to cuff them as soon as they knock over the display." But you gotta understand, these corporations, they don't want any piece of this, man. You think they're gonna take a principled stand against right-wing lunatics? No way, no way. Especially when, let's be honest, a giant portion of the base agrees with this. So they're gonna piss off all of those customers? No, they're gonna give in. By the way, we could put the same kind of pressure, but not physical. Do it with actual tactics that could work inside these stores on a financial level. But no leaders, nothing, zero. No one organizing a goddamn thing. All right, so Lou B wrote in, oh, sorry, I already read that. About earlier stuff in the show, including the war, a potential war in the Middle East. Navinix wrote in, "Why can't Iran have a nuclear weapon if apartheid Israel can have one? If Israel or US is worried, they should develop better defense systems." No, man, look, we do not want Iran and the Grand Ayatollah to have nuclear weapons. Having said that, yes, do we lose credibility when we say, yeah, so what? Israel already has weapons, nuclear weapons, and there's nothing you can do about it. Ha ha, we're hypocrites. Yeah, we lose massive credibility. But I don't know what to do about that. Uriah Heap says, "Hurrah, $9 gallon gas, I can't wait." Well, here's who can't wait. All the oil companies that are right now giving tons and tons of contributions to both Republicans and Democrats. I Am Suck says, "Nothing will fundamentally change Biden, doing nothing to stop Trump's escalation with Iran." In fact, he's pouring oil on it. Kabuki Dragon says, "In a just world, Israeli first strike against Iran should mean an immediate revocation of any and all military and financial aid from us. I won't hold my breath. There's a 0% chance of that. We will increase aid to them, and everyone knows it." Sexy Speed Raider says, "More like the dictator of Israel." No, they had elections. He was actually elected. Sad day for us. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna Ikitaku, Jeff Beltari, and Jane K. They all just joined. We appreciate it, guys. We love you for it. And Samantha Toder gifted 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. Thank you, Samantha. You're wonderful. Anna.
Well, we've got an update on some of the January 6 rioters and those who partly organized what happened that day. Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the Oath Keepers, has officially been sentenced to 18 years in prison after being found guilty of sedition for his role in the January 6 Capitol riots. Rhodes was convicted of seditious conspiracy by a Washington, D.C. jury in November. Now, prosecutors wanted the judge to sentence him to 25 years, but ultimately the judge decided on 18 years. Now, what did Stuart Rhodes do specifically? According to CNN, Rhodes, who was accused of leading dozens of other individuals in a coordinated plot that culminated in the January 6 siege, was also found guilty of obstructing an official proceeding and tampering with documents. Of those that Rhodes led, 22 people, 22 have already been convicted of various federal crimes by a jury or guilty plea. 8, including Rhodes's co-defendant, Kelly Meggs, who will be sentenced later Thursday, meaning today as well, were convicted of seditious conspiracy. Now, the judge argued during the sentencing that Rhodes failed to show even a little bit of remorse for what he engaged in. In fact, through what he said throughout the trial, it was very clear that Rhodes was not at all remorseful for what he had done or what he took part in. And this next video explains that element of the story in greater detail.
The judge said that Rhodes did not express remorse for this, and the judge stated that they feared that if freed, he'd attempt this again. What exactly did Rhodes say through the course of this trial that gave the judge that concern?
Right. Well, the judge's words specifically was that, as we heard you speak today, the moment you are released, you will be prepared to take up arms against our government. He's quoting back to him, and that's because Stuart Rhodes spoke for about 20 minutes today and essentially revealed how extreme he still is. He believes that the election of 2020 was illegal. He believes that there is a criminal regime governing the United States. He believes he is a political prisoner. But Judge Mehta said to him, no, you are not. It is not because of your political beliefs that you are here today. It is because you believe violence was the way to achieve the outcome of the election that you preferred, and that is not the way that American democracy works.
He also said in the context of the sentencing hearing, quote, I'd like to start by just saying that I'm a political prisoner, and like President Trump, my only crime is opposing those who are destroying our country, Rose told the judge in court. And it did not bode well for him. Cenk.
Okay, so first of all, fun fact, that guy's got an eye patch. He looks like a tough guy, a warrior, maybe in Afghanistan or Iraq. No, he shot his own eye out.
Oh my God, idiot. I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Total idiot. Okay.
What a fun detail to the story.
Yes. So now, secondly, Donald Trump. Oh my God, these guys are patriots, and I might pardon them. Then why didn't you give $1 to his defense? Left him totally hung him out to dry. Trump hung out all those guys to dry. So his Trump supporters gave him a couple $100 million for legal defense. And they all say, oh my God, we love the January 6th guys, they're political prisoners, we can't wait to free them. Well, why don't you use your hundreds of millions of dollars to free them? Why did they have to use public defenders, et cetera? Because these guys aren't rich like Trump, half of them are broke, right? So, and by the way, what happened? And now I'm massively in favor of this guy going away. Having said that, all the poor are getting jail sentences.
That's true.
All the rich that actually organized it, none of them are getting jail sentences.
To be fair, in the video that we just watched, it looked like they were searching his home in Texas, which looked pretty nice.
It's in Texas. No, he lives in remote areas. I read long stories about him, and I call him an idiot because he is in so many different ways.
I mean, he shot his
also,
own eye out. Like,
yeah, of course. But he's actually a guy that wanted to be thoughtful, and he just went down the wrong rabbit hole and just kept going and going and going until he became convinced that he had to be the vigilante militia for Donald Trump and cause violence on anyone that defied the dear leader. And he still believes that. And now that gets us to the most important point. If Donald Trump is elected, he will definitely pardon the great majority of these
100%. I was just thinking that. Yep.
Yeah, it's not an open question. He said, I'm gonna pardon a huge majority of them, maybe all of them. We don't know yet, okay? So we don't know that it's gonna be Rhodes in particular, but he's pardoning most of them. When he does that, what signal does that send? That sends a signal, do violence on behalf of Donald Trump, and you will get a get out of jail free card. Very literally, okay? It's like the villain Bane in the Batman movie, where he releases all the prisoners, and he goes, now wreak havoc. That's exactly what Donald Trump would be doing if he gets reelected. So guys, you see us rip Biden day after day because of his weakness, because he's so conservative on economic issues, et cetera, et cetera. But Donald Trump is like a comic book villain. He tried to overturn our democracy once. He used these vigilante thugs. He's definitely gonna do it again. And he's gonna release the guys who are convicted of insurrection against the United States of America, because they did the insurrection and the violence on his behalf. Remember when his staff told him, they're looking to execute your vice president, President Trump. He said, well, maybe he had it coming. He 100% believes in violence. And if he pardons any of those guys, it's a giant green light. So what kind of violence can they do to all of us and get away with? Probably as much as they want.
All right, that does it for the first hour. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back for the second hour of the show, that's when the fun begins, because the Trump versus DeSantis fight is really heating up and you don't wanna miss it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member. Go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join, and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades.
Elon. Oh, I think Elon has left.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. More news.
Well, let's have a little bit of fun because the dunking on DeSantis has continued, starting with Trump.
Can I please make my big announcement now? Everyone just...
Hello!
Just shut up, George.
Can somebody just mute George?
Dick, could you try not to cough on the...
Okay, so how are we gonna take out Trump, you guys?
Guys from the FBI, this is not a private call. This is a public Twitter space. Everyone can listen in.
God damn it.
Donald Trump is notorious for his pretty vicious social media attacks, but he just released the strangest one yet. What you just watched was a mock-up of DeSantis's disastrous Twitter announcement. He was supposed to announce that he's running for president through Twitter Spaces. And not only was it glitchy, Twitter Spaces was crashing just repeatedly. It was a complete and utter disaster. And so in this mock-up, you'll see DeSantis along with some pretty questionable people, including the devil, Dick Cheney, and yes, also Adolf Hitler. If you didn't catch DeSantis's embarrassing Twitter fail yesterday, here's a little clip of that.
Governor DeSantis first drew my attention and support when I saw how he responded to the COVID pandemic and refused to believe what we now know to be the many falsehoods that government experts and their media mouthpieces were feeding us. He kept Florida's schools open and its economy thriving, while my state of California chose 2 years of learning loss and lockdowns that we have yet to fully.
All right, we're just reallocating more server capability to be able to handle the load here. It's really going crazy. So, yeah, I'm obviously very excited to have Governor DeSantis.
So it kept crashing, and you know, when it would crash, it would take people back to like the front page of their phone. But real quick, I have to show you how Trump's little mock-up video ends. This is how it ends.
Well, that concludes our Twitter space for today. Thank you to all of our...
Hold your horses, Elon. The real president is going to say a few words. The devil, I'm going to kick your ass very soon. Hitler, you're already dead. Dick Cheney sounds like you'll be joining Hitler very soon. Klaus Schwab and George Soros, I'm putting both your asses in jail. And Ron DeSanctimonious can kiss my big, beautiful 2024 presidential ass. Trump 2024, baby. Let's go.
Okay.
He lives for this kind of stuff.
He does.
And you know what? I don't know if you want to say to his credit, but he has hired the right team for this stuff.
Yeah, well, in that case, I think he's just reposting something, right? And to his credit, though, like I often talk about how he's got these deranged MAGA guys that I think are problematic in 18 different ways. But he also does have MAGA trolls who are really good at social media. See, we're the fairest show in America, so we call it as it is, whether we like it or we don't like it. So probably some MAGA troll put that together, but that's not the interesting part of the story. The interesting part of the story is Trump reposting it, because pre-2015, that gets you banned in the Democratic or Republican parties instantly. Like, you're referring to, like, you got Hitler in the video? Are you crazy? And you're reposting it, saying that you're the opposing candidate in your own party is in bed with the devil and Hitler? Instant cancellation, instant, over. But Trump can do anything he wants. And so he's messing with them. But guys, we can say, oh, we hate it and he shouldn't include Hitler, blah, 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 blah. But it's his base finds it intensely entertaining. And that's what matters. And the stuffed shirts in media and Washington are all like, oh, I do declare this is very brief gauche. This is all wrong. Who cares? Is he gonna get the votes or is he not gonna get the votes? And this is far more likely to get the votes. There's so many interesting things in that small little video. Notice how the right wing has Dick Cheney next to the devil and Adolf Hitler.
I know, yeah. No, but honestly, it's indicative of how much the Republican base has changed, right? How much the Republican Party has changed, which is, by the way, incredibly concerning for the country and for the Democratic Party, because the very individuals who love Dick Cheney hate Donald Trump, and guess where they went?
Yeah, guys.
Okay, when we talk about the Democratic Party being a big tent, it's more than just a big tent. It has absorbed the never Trump Republicans. I never thought I would see the day where the mainstream Democratic Party would be applauding Liz Cheney as if she's a hero.
Forget Liz Cheney, they brought on Dick Cheney. So now MSNBC's a Dick Cheney fan. Get a load of how much of a cell phone this is. When Dick Cheney left office, you know what he was polling at? Because Biden and Trump are so unpopular. You're used to politicians and leaders being in the 30s, which is previously unimaginable, right? In an earlier era, for any president to be that unpopular. Dick Cheney polled at 9%. He was in the single digits. He was despised by this country. And what happened? The Republicans like, okay, then we don't want you anymore. And Democrats like, oh, come on in, we'll take you.
Such a disaster.
Why would you? He's the most right-wing politician of our lifetimes until Trump. Why would you take that toxic load of crap and put him on your team? Why would you take the guy that's at 9% and celebrate him? What is wrong with you people? Meanwhile, Trump, being unfortunately politically savvy, goes, oh yeah, hey, Dick Cheney. I don't care that I agreed with him before. I don't care. I'm gonna say I hate him now and I'm gonna get all the credit for it. And that's exactly what happened. And so, look, and who's that Klaus S guy, right? So I see Klaus S, I was like, Santa? I'm like, oh, is this part of the joke? Is Santa evil now? Okay, were the Guardians of the Galaxy right? Anyways, so, no, it's Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum. And so now the right wing is against these neoliberal groups, neoliberal basically meaning economically conservative, groups that oppress all the populations and give everything to the rich. That's another giant win for Republicans. Even though they don't agree with that in policy at all. In policy, they're about to pass $3.5 trillion tax cut, or they're gonna propose one for the rich. They already passed $10 trillion in tax cuts for the rich. But they are appearing to be populist while the Democrats are embracing conservative economic positions that the American people despise. And there's one last fun thing out of this, other than the fact that the people at the top of that were all like, almost all either TYT guests, former TYT hosts, producers, etc. That was fun. But that nickname, Ron Disaster, that came out of this and trended on Twitter, that's a good nickname, okay? So, I mean, there's a lot of good names for DeSantis, and I don't know how long we're gonna have to kick him around.
I just like Rob. Rob is my new favorite. Right? It's just like, it's just so dumb, but so funny. But yeah, that's a fine nickname. There's so many to choose from at this point, right? So pick your poison. But I do want to also just note that the right-wing media, with the exception of the far right, like Newsmax, OAN, they're still rooting for Daddy Trump. But if you look at Fox News, for instance, if you look at even the Daily Wire, it's very clear to me that they're trying to prop up Ron DeSantis. But Fox News couldn't help itself because the rollout of his presidential campaign was such a disaster that they put out this fun headline: much hyped presidential announcement, a disaster for Twitter due to tech issues. Fox News then rubbed it in with the breaking news notification: programming alert, want to actually see and hear Ron DeSantis? Tune into Fox News at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, so there's two elements to this. One is they're totally right, okay? The second is mainstream media hates social media because they're competition. So I've told you guys in the past about how CNN, etc., did hit pieces on Facebook when Facebook was really popular. Facebook not as popular anymore. All of a sudden there's no hit pieces on Facebook, okay? Now Twitter is super popular. Tucker Carlson might be going from Fox News, cable news, beloved cable news, to Twitter. And Daily Wire saying the same thing. All of a sudden, oh yeah, Twitter sucks, man. Twitter, screw Twitter, oh yeah. Okay, yeah, in this case, they more than earned it, right? And absolutely. Elon Musk is a disaster. And yeah, this is what happens when you fire 90% of your employees. But having said that, be careful with mainstream media. They're also trying to torpedo all of social media, including TikTok, because they view it as competition.
I have to jump in and just opine on the lack of judgment from Ron DeSantis. Because just stop and think about it for a second. He signed on to rolling out his presidential campaign, announcing his presidential bid through Twitter Spaces, which was an audio-only venture to begin with. Why would you do that?
I know why.
That's so, I mean, the guy, okay, I know what you're gonna say, and I think it's a good theory. I don't know if I buy it completely. I think that he just has terrible judgment and he wanted to be in the same room with Elon Musk and he thought that would be beneficial in some way. But what do you think?
So for sure, he did it for a number of reasons, but the primary one is he wants Silicon Valley bro money. So the Silicon Valley bros are almost all libertarian right-wingers now, okay? So those are guys who are range from billionaires to hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's tons of them in Silicon Valley. And so, and they're now huge donors to Republicans. And by the way, remember, there's no limits. Sheldon Adelson, 3 different occasions, gave over $100 million to the Republicans during presidential cycles. So Elon Musk is one of the richest men in the world. If he wants, he can give the Republican candidate $1 billion.
Look.
Right, I mean, he threw away $44 billion on Twitter. So this is Ron DeSantis kissing the donor ass for money. There's more to it, but that's the primary reason why.
I get it. However, you didn't need to announce your presidential bid this way. You could have agreed to do a Twitter Spaces hangout after announcing it in a better way that includes video, that includes channels that are a little more, let's say, reliable, dependable, won't fall apart. But he chose to go in this direction. It's also worth noting that MSNBC put out this graphic that I found, you know what, good for them. This is one of the rare instances where I give them a lot of credit because it's pretty hilarious. So it says peak audience numbers for live streams. So at the very top, they show you the number of people who were watching DeSantis's 2024 launch, which was at 300,000. Then they compare that number to all these other live streams that were taking place and how they tended to have a far bigger audience. So the April the giraffe gives birth. 1.2 million people were watching that, and I believe that they made the right decision. AOC plays video game on Twitch. Even that got more views at 430,000, which it cuts both ways. It's both hilarious and also depressing because she could do so much more with her name recognition that she just decides not to do. But anyway, let's move on. BuzzFeed makes watermelon explode. Gets more than double Ron DeSantis's launch at 807,000. Drake plays Fortnite. 628,000 people were watching that, and Cristiano Ronaldo accidentally records himself in sauna, which should have 700 million views, but for some reason it only had 700,000.
Okay, that's another hit piece. Sorry, I don't agree. Okay, and I'll tell you why. So the top streams is a deeply misleading category. If they said top videos online, then it would be in the hundreds of millions, right? So they take just concurrent streams. Remember when Tucker Carlson did the video on Twitter, it got about, I think it was, I forget the exact number, if it was 10 times as much as his audience on Fox News, but way more for sure, okay? So if you take the videos afterwards, they do way better than mainstream media, but MSNBC doesn't want you to see that. That's why they're like, ha ha, watermelon exploding, he. So that's totally misleading. Now in this case, Spaces was a disastrous place to do it because it's audio only. You're not even gonna get video out of it. That's why you're right that it was bungled, it was poorly played. But remember, there's one other reason why DeSantis did it, because Tucker Carlson's going to Twitter. So he's thinking Twitter is the new right-wing hub. Elon Musk is there, Tucker Carlson's there, and all my billionaire bros are there.
All the cool kids are doing it.
Exactly. But if you're gonna do that, you gotta A, be competent, and then B, have a plan for ass kicking. When this goes wrong, you gotta come over the top on Trump. But he hasn't done anything. He hasn't come over the top, he's gone under. So right now, his campaign is, Rob disaster.
You don't think it's because DeSantis has a face for radio / facial expressions for radio?
Oh, that's my favorite theory. One of our producers came up with this theory earlier today. She said, oh, I know why he did audio, because he doesn't want to do those weird faces. Like, I'm announcing everybody who Donald Trump's in the race. Right? If you had a face like that, you would want to hide it too. Hey, Meatball Rob, I get it.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll show you how Rob decides to fight back and it ain't good.
Back during the social break here. First, let's go to YouTube Super Chat. Brad Vertigan writes in, as a gay man, I feel betrayed that a company that had used rainbows to virtue signal can't stand by their mild milquetoast support. The stakes for them are so low, I can't put my sexuality in a back corner of the store. Brad, I feel your frustration. You're 100% right. And by the way, look at how poorly played this Target situation is. So they cower to the right wing instantly. But half of them don't even know that they gave in, so they're still smashing the crap out of Target. And Charlie Kirk saying not good enough, make sure they go bankrupt. And now they lost you as a customer, and they've lost a lot of people on the left as customers. So you could not have played it worse. But companies still fall for it every time. Not every time, to be fair. Disney's like the weird one mega fighter against Republicans. I mean, in a weird, crazy twist. Jonathan says, anytime it rains, now they're going to say that the weather is too woke. Okay, I'm a little worried about it, but he's pointing out that, hey, you're going to have rainbows. Then as soon as you made that point, Jonathan, I thought, you know what's next on the boycott list? Hawaii. They're going to be like, look at all the rainbows in Hawaii. Hawaii saw LGBTQ, man, let's go smash Hawaii. We can do a boycott. Okay, are you sure it won't happen? Are you sure? Okay, Axel the Ghost writes in, during the Holocaust, they took Jewish literature out of stores and then closed Jewish businesses. Conservatives aren't even hiding it anymore, are they? So look, that's where, as the great Sandra Day O'Connor quote goes, we should be concerned about those beginnings because we're concerned about those ends, right? So they're doing some of the things that fascists normally do, and it is deeply concerning. Rockin' a Wall says, my mother told me if I don't like it, I should leave the country. I said I would if I could afford it. Look at this though, the country's being torn apart. Now moms are telling their kids, hey, if you don't like the right wing, leave the country. By the way, the left wing is the majority. Why don't they leave the country? I wore Jenko jeans, writes in on Super Chat. That's a new one.
That's a blast from the past.
Okay, so all the money on our military, Israeli military and Ukraine, but let's cut food stamps for the poor so we can go to war. And this is how Biden wins? At a bare minimum, the worst politics in America. So you're 100% right. Guys like Ro Khanna are fighting back against that, but not winning within the Democratic Party. YouTube members, Blurred writes in, this is no joke, Trump has a strong grassroots, Dems need a winner, of course, but unfortunately they won't get one. And Viting Gale says, Anna's 100% right, he hired the right people. All right, back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, Julia, and Ann Crichton. Julia and Ann just joined. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. And Athletes LLC gifted 20 Young Turks memberships. American heroes as always. Check them out. All right, Casper.
Let's get to our next story.
Well, I am running for president of the United States to lead our great American comeback. Look, we know our country's going in the wrong direction. We see it with our eyes. And we feel it in our bones. Our southern borders collapse. Drugs are pouring into the country. Our cities are being hollowed out by spiking crime. The federal government's making it harder for the average family to make ends meet and to attain and maintain a middle-class lifestyle. And our president, well, he lacks vigor, flounders in the face of our nation's challenges, and he takes his cues from the woke mob.
DeSantis, what are you doing? That awful video that you just watched came from the DeSantis War Room, which describes itself as the rapid response for Ron DeSantis. And that video came following his bungled presidential announcement, which he unfortunately decided to do through the channels of Twitter Spaces, which was glitchy and kept crashing. And so, as we know, DeSantis, lacks personality, and that is going to be a liability moving forward. I don't know why he chose a war room that tends to also lack personality. This video made no sense. I mean, he chose to make a 3.5 minute long video, or this team did, that's about 50% footage of Ron DeSantis, and another 50% of the footage is old pictures of Elon Musk. So let's watch one more clip from it and then we'll discuss.
This also means replacing the woke mind virus with reality, facts, and enduring principles. Merit must trump identity politics. We must return normalcy to our communities. America's a sovereign country. Our borders must be respected. Public deserves safe communities, and law and order must be maintained in American cities. We can't have inmates running the asylum, and we must reject attacks on the men and women of law enforcement. But we also understand governing is not entertainment. It's not about building a brand or virtue signaling. It is about delivering results.
I have a theory. I have a theory that he accidentally employed people who are rooting for Trump.
Yeah, that's a fun theory.
They're sabotaging.
Yeah. So look, he does that super weak video. What did Trump do? He reposted a video of Trump interrupting the Twitter Spaces interview between Elon Musk and DeSantis and saying, "Hey, devil, I'm gonna kick your ass. Dick Cheney, you're gonna join Hitler soon. He's dead. Haha." Like, that was it was done by a fan, 1,000 times more effective. More people are talking about it. This is a super boring video. And look, I think this editor nailed it. Graphic One, Sohrab Amari wrote in, "I'm sorry, I'm confused. What is going on here? Is Elon the running mate? And why is Elon seeing dancing in a tux at some laser show while RSD is talking about fentanyl poisoning America?" That's a funny last point too. But guys, seriously, like, is Elon gonna be the VP candidate? What's going on here? Why does he have the video? That's so weird. When you're running for president, why did you do that?
How did this happen? How did this happen? I mean, the guy was running for president even before he announced. So how did he not like get his ducks in a row and make sure that he's prepared? How did this happen? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Obviously not showing a lot of competence there. And by the way, that's the power of Trump's grassroots army, sometimes literally, right? That they do the work for him, while DeSantis gets these idiot consultants from the 1990s. They're like, "Oh, we will do a great war room for you. Okay, we will get him on Twitter." And that's the result, a super weak sauce. But there's one other thing here. As we were talking about earlier in the show, part of the reason why I think that DeSantis did it on Twitter with Elon Musk is he's trying to get money from Silicon Valley Republicans, which is almost all of them, right? And half of them are billionaires, so he could finance his whole campaign from just those guys. In fact, he could finance his whole campaign just from Elon Musk. So this is now kind of a merging of the candidates and the donors. That video was almost a perfect symbol of it. They already worked for the donors, but this is DeSantis saying, "This is my main sponsor." Like, Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign brought to you by Elon Musk. And by the way, when I'm president, I won't really be president, it'll be Elon. If he financed it, he'll own me. It's just a little bit more brazen in admitting it.
I want to just quickly talk about Elon Musk. I mean, it's pretty clear he's going to be stumping for Ron DeSantis. He also reacted to a poll that was posted on Twitter. So I want to show you the poll, but don't take it too seriously, take it with a grain of salt. I'll give you the average of polls based on Real Clear Politics and their analysis on this. But anyway, so Interactive Polls puts out these results showing that in the 2024 presidential election, DeSantis would beat Biden by 1 percentage point, but Biden and that Biden would beat Trump by 2 percentage points. And they cite Quinnipiac as the data or the polling behind these results. But let's take a look at the Real Clear Politics average poll, which shows that Donald Trump would beat DeSantis quite a bit. Okay, so here you have Trump versus DeSantis. You can see that Trump is leading DeSantis by a whopping 32.6 points. So Real Clear Politics average poll shows that DeSantis would beat Biden by 0.6 points. So let's take a look at that. There you have it. Man, like honestly, what I take away from this more than anything is how terrifying it is that Biden's gonna be the Democratic candidate.
100%, because let's show you the last one. So how does Trump do against Biden? Well, unfortunately, he does even better than DeSantis. He beats him by 1.4.
And remember, Democrats are banking on Trump being the candidate because they think they're going to have an easier time beating Trump.
But half the polls show, in fact, the average of the polls show that Trump does better against Biden than DeSantis does. And it shows that literally every Republican beats Biden. Why are we running Biden? Oh, because the people in power want it, because nothing will fundamentally change under Biden. Even, look guys, even if you think, oh, well, I mean, it's 50-50. You want to take a 50-50 shot that Trump is president again? Why don't we pick someone better? No, you're not allowed. Once an incumbent says he's gonna run, everyone must bow their heads. I don't agree, and I'm not gonna bow my head.
All right, let's move on to some juicy details about a resignation over at CPAC that you should all know about. All right, so Bob Botched, who is the longtime treasurer over at the American Conservative Union, also known as ACU, that's the organization that puts on the annual CPAC conference. Well, he has resigned. He quit his job Tuesday night in a fiery resignation letter that claims that the finances over at the organization were too obscure, specifically regarding ACU chairman Matt Schlapp and his ongoing sexual harassment lawsuit. Now, the sexual harassment lawsuit has to do with a staffer that he had allegedly groped. So let's get to the details of that. So for those who aren't familiar, back in January of this year, a Republican staffer by the name of Carlton Huffman accused Schlapp of groping him while they were campaigning specifically for Herschel Walker. So he was a staffer for Herschel Walker's campaign. They were traveling in the car. Schlapp denied that he had groped Huffman and then filed a $9.4 million defamation lawsuit. Well, he filed a defamation lawsuit against Schlapp after Schlapp denied it. This is where Botched comes in, because after that lawsuit was filed, he quickly noticed some pretty suspicious financial activity happening over at CPAC. I'm gonna give you the details on that, and I'm gonna give you some excerpts from his letter in just a moment. But before I do, Cenk, it is amazing to me that the accusations against Schlapp happened back in January, and the mainstream Republican Party doesn't care at all. I mean, several big name Republican lawmakers went to the CPAC conference and spoke. I mean, Ted Cruz is an example. He had no problem showing up to speak.
They always protect their own. And they know something we don't know, which is a giant percentage of Republican leaders are gay. And so I talked to you guys about an article I read a while back. It goes all the way back to the 1970s and 80s. They are constantly having sex with one another behind the scenes. And so, in fact, so much so they were worried that Ronald Reagan was part of the gay agenda to take over the government, okay? And so this is as old as time. And why? Because a fairly sizable percentage of the population is gay, but not out of the closet yet. And a lot of them go over to the right wing because they unfortunately have issues with how they view themselves, usually because of a religious upbringing. So it's not surprising that a right-wing leader is, and being, of course, we're left-wingers, we don't think there's anything wrong with being gay, but pummeling someone's crotch at length,
that's what he alleged.
Which is literally what this guy said Schlapp did to him, is not being LGBTQ, that's actually sexual assault. So the guy didn't ask for it, Schlapp goes over for some schlippity schlap.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly, right? Please, okay. So, and he said, I don't know what at length means, but that he pummeled his crotch at length, right? And this is not the first allegation against Schlapp. Look, this is pretty obvious stuff as to what's going on. And my guess is that the other Republican leaders, they're defending Schlapp because they always knew that Schlapp was gay, right? That's my guess. That one I don't know if, I don't have details to back that up. But either way, we do know now, they definitely know that he has done this to at least this guy. The allegations come with tons of receipts, including a video that guy shot on the night of, explaining what happened to him, etc. Other people coming out, and now they know, and they don't mind at all. And all those attacks against LGBTQ folks, by the way, that's just to rile up their base and drive hatred so they can get more votes, so they can pass tax cuts for the rich.
So it appears that at least based on what we know from his resignation letter, the now former ACU treasurer is concerned about how some of the funds for CPAC have been used. He is concerned that Schlapp is misappropriating some of those funds for his, legal defense. And so let's get to those details. Days after Huffman's lawsuit was filed, Beauprez wrote that ACU's executive committee fronted Schlapp $50,000 so he could immediately retain a lawyer. Schlapp hired Ben Chu, a prominent litigator who recently defended Johnny Depp in his lawsuit against Amber Heard. Now, the treasurer wrote that he was blindsided when Schlapp told him that he had raised another $270,000 from donors to ACU and its related foundation, ACUF. His shock grew when he said ACU's lawyer told him in February that CPAC, that the money was, quote, already either dispersed or invoiced. Now, in his letter, the now former treasurer also stated that since that exchange, he had received no additional information about Schlapp's case or how much was being spent on it. So he says, all of us as directors not only have a right, but a fiduciary obligation to be made aware of what, how, and why monies are being spent, especially involving a corporation insider such as the chairman. The case is now nearly 5 months old and the full board has never been fully briefed. And he's worried about misuse of funds. He's worried about blowback or backlash if he continues on with this charade. A few of us have sought answers to some of what seem to be obvious and necessary questions. As a result, we have been accused of not having Matt's back and trying to stage a leadership coup. So I gotta be honest, this reminds me of what happened at Project Veritas, right? The accusations against O'Keefe at Project Veritas was that he was misusing funds. He ended up getting pushed out of the organization, and then we were awarded with this incredible music video that he put together that I can never forget about. But nonetheless, this does seem to be an ongoing pattern or trend among right-wing organizations.
Yeah. So the part that I'm most shocked by is that there was apparently a principled conservative who minded misusing money.
I know, right?
Whoa, I'm not kidding. I was super shocked by that. So credit where credit is due to Beauprez, because normally the Republican politicians, the most spectacularly Donald Trump, but a lot of them view their own supporters as a piggy bank. Suckers and losers in Trump's parlance to take money from, and of course you steal it. What do you mean? You put it in your pocket. You do it through all these things. Oh, I'm paying for my Trump Tower because I'm paying rent. Oh, I'm paying my golf courses. etc. But again, it's not just Trump. Tons of them do this type of scam, right? But in this case, this guy's actually principled. He's like, no, we shouldn't be wasting people's money. Whoa.
No, it's amazing. In fact, in his resignation letter, he included a metaphor that you should know about. It is a colorful metaphor to say the least. The treasurer compared his role to that of a mushroom, to be kept in the dark and fed a lot of manure, he wrote. I no longer am willing to comply.
Good for you, brother. Okay.
Seriously, I'm shocked.
Yeah, and that's the treasurer for CPAC. I got no love for CPAC, so I'm sure I disagree with that guy 100% on all the issues, but at least he's honest, and that's shocking in any politics, let alone the Republican Party. And he said that he was concerned this was going to be a disaster for CPAC. He called it the schlappening.
He did not say that, no.
I made that up, but it was kind of fun.
But he was worried that if he continued to comply, he might get bitch schlapped.
Oh.
So he's trying to do the right thing. Okay,
we're here all week.
He didn't say that either, but nonetheless, I couldn't resist. All right, but a few other concerns of his that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. So he was also concerned that board members were getting paid by the organization without the full approval of the entire board, like they're supposed to have some sort of vote on it. But those votes never happened, according to him. Now, Schlapp was violating board rules to unilaterally decide when the board would meet. That was another accusation, according to his resignation letter. And that Schlapp refused to disclose any financial information about the 2023 CPAC conference. He says that any rogue DA could target ACU and invent charges. What concerns me is that in some cases, our operating procedures are in direct conflict with our own bylaws. Thus, we're feeding red meat to the lions. So this is also to protect himself. I think it's smart. He's able to do something that a lot of people in this country, certainly those in positions of power, have either an unwillingness or inability to do, which is to see what could happen in the long run, right? Everyone's concerned about short-term gain. It appears that he's concerned about potential consequences in the long run. Now, Beauprez also spoke out against the culture over at ACU, and that's super juicy. So new hires always come in with the highest regard, but when they leave, whether by choice or get fired, they are disparaged and have suddenly become useless human refuse. Beauprez wrote, adding that employees have succumbed to professional therapists and prescription drugs.
So now that's a common theme I see in a lot
in
of
America with a lot of workplaces.
That's true too.
Yeah.
But among conservative whistleblowers, when they leave an organization, they're like, remember the Crowder's workers, let alone like almost every story we've done about whistleblowers or whatever, just people leaving conservative organizations. They're all like, Jesus, man, that was so traumatic. I can't believe how they treat human beings. Why, did you not hear them on air? That's kind of what they said they were, that's their general attitude. And of course they act like that in real life too. So you shouldn't be that surprised. So Beauprez overly surprised by the corruption within his organization, but tremendous credit for pointing it out.
Absolutely. We got to take a break. When we come back, we have more news for you, including a gigantic explosive story involving Republicans turning on Ken Paxton in the state of Texas. That and more coming up.
Whoa. Back during the social break here. So first off, I'm going to tell you not to forget our podcasting network, but you already don't forget it. So check out all of our shows on wherever you get your podcasts. I also want to remind you guys that when you're signing up for membership, or if you're already a member, you can also upgrade through the join button on YouTube too, and we appreciate that. And that really helps us because the $4.99 membership that most of you have is just barely sustainable for us. So the upgrades make a big difference. And notice that we did not increase those prices during the inflation panic. Okay, so they're just $4.99 a month, and anyone could get all of our shows whenever they want, all the privileges of membership for just $5 a month, instead of getting that coffee at Starbucks. With all how they're treating their employees, get a month membership for TYT instead. All right, let's go to those aforementioned members. Dragon with a girl tattoo says he's got a great face for radio. Good one, Anna. With a laughing emoji. Just Jim writes in, Cenk, you wonder why the left has no plan to protest. To many fragmented groups with no central planning, pick one issue, let's say campaign finance, get everyone on board and protest in DC with millions. Now you're right, except they refuse to do that. They definitely won't pick campaign finance because it offends their colleagues, and well, that would hurt their relationships and their feelings or something. So they refuse to talk about that issue, even though it's the #1 issue. When if anyone goes to organize them, everyone on the left resists 100% and usually asks, "What's in it for me?" So that's what happens behind the scenes. I hate to tell you that, but that's just reality. Buckley V. Vallejo says, I think Rob didn't show his face because of his face. And I like that your handle is Buckley V. Vallejo. That makes you very powerful. That idiot Dimwitty writes in, everybody's got fun handles. Biden's gonna cave to the Republicans because he agrees with them and cut federal spending. To offset this, his administration thinks banging the war drums with Iran will raise his popularity because it worked for Bush in 2004. I think that analysis is completely correct, and Biden's analysis is a disaster. It will lead him to definitely losing the election. HXC Mike says, sounds like Rhodes should have listened to that mall Santa as a kid, who wouldn't give him a gun for Christmas because he would shoot his eye out. Well, he should have listened but didn't. A Green New Dealer Dragon says on Twitch, maybe we should forfeit on our debt. It might stop us from bombing the rest of the world. Well, that could be one upside. Crypt Kill writes in, polls should be like, would you vote for the candidate that wants tax cuts for the rich? Well, then stop voting for them. But guys, that's the problem. So 76% of Americans want tax increases on the rich. So why do they keep voting for all the politicians? One, what choice do they have? Both the Republicans and the Democrats find a way to, oh golly gee, all we could do was tax cuts for the rich. But secondly, okay, so let's say that the Republicans are much worse on that, and they are, okay? But people don't know that because the media never tells them that. That's the number one problem, whether they're Republican or Democratic voters. All right, I'm out of time, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Christopher Conkright, and Ronnie Paco. Ronnie just became a new member and said, oh, thank you for my gift membership. Look at that, community looking out for each other. Love it, thank you guys. Casper.
Well, we have a big breaking news story involving the Attorney General of Texas, so let's discuss. The Texas-led House has decided to recommend impeachment for their Attorney General, Ken Paxton. Now, this all started with a committee vote. Again, this committee is dominated by Republican lawmakers in the state legislature. And that committee, which is the Committee on General Investigating, did vote in favor of recommending impeachment for Ken Paxton. Now, why would they do that? Apparently, investigators for the committee on Wednesday said that Paxton abused his official capacity, misused official information, and retaliated against whistleblowers who had accused him of corruption in October of 2020. Paxton settled the corruption lawsuit with 4 former aides in February for a whopping $3.3 million, a sum that Paxton had sought to pay using taxpayer money. And apparently that's part of the issue as well. The Texas legislature balked at using public funds to pay that settlement. Now, the investigators also said, according to the Washington Post, that Paxton had pressured the Open Records Division in his office to help a donor and a friend, a guy by the name of Nate Paul, in his legal fight with a nonprofit group in Austin. And in exchange for that help, investigators are alleging that Paul helped with a floor-to-ceiling renovation at Paxton's home and employed a woman with whom Paxton allegedly had an extramarital affair.
Okay, so this is shocking that a Republican-led House.
What's happening today?
I mean, what's going on?
What is happening today?
Yeah, so because earlier in the show we did a story about the treasurer for CPAC, the main right-wing conference, turning on them and saying, I think they're misusing money.
He stepped down and in his resignation letter accused the organization of misusing funds, yeah.
So that's 2 times in the same day that Republicans are being principled and about corruption and misusing money? Like that's the most shocking news I've ever seen.
But you know what, I will allow it.
Oh, are you kidding me? I love it. Okay, so great, credit where credit is due. So guys, look, I kid around about how we're the fairest show in America, but we kind of are. Because so everybody falls into their camps. So, oh no, we can't ever give the Republicans credit. No, when they do the right thing, I'm happy to give them credit. Why not, right? Now, could there be an ulterior motive? Say it with me. Of course. So I'm gonna give you one possible theory, but I don't care. You do the right thing, I still give you credit no matter why you did it. But from Mediaite, this week Paxton himself called for the resignation of Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan, who's of course a Republican, after Phelan appeared to speak while intoxicated on the House floor.
But he did appear to be intoxicated on the House floor.
No, 100%. But could Phelan have caught feelings that Paxton called him out for being drunk? And all of a sudden, boom, Paxton finds himself under a bus. But it's not boom. Again, that's just one particular theory because apparently they had been investigating him for a while.
Yes.
They might have decided to go public now because of the diss on the speaker, right, who controls everything in the House. That's how a lot of the state legislatures work. Okay, so maybe he decided to release it because of that, but they were investigating him earlier anyway.
Exactly. They might ultimately have decided that Paxton is too much of a political liability. So for instance, in September of 2020, a Texas judge had ordered Paxton to sit for a deposition about accusations of securities fraud. I mean, this guy has all sorts of pretty terrible dirt and accusations like following him around. And ultimately, maybe the Texas Republicans are like, do we really wanna like root for this guy? Do we wanna protect and provide cover for this guy? Despite the indictment and a litany of investigations, Texas voters ended up voting in favor of electing him. And they did so. They elected him to a third term as Attorney General in 2022. And so, yeah, I'm very curious to see how this all plays out. If they do go through with attempting to impeach him, that would require a 2/3 majority in both the state House and state Senate. And that's a difficult, threshold to pass. So we'll see if that actually comes through. But to see a Republican-dominated committee within the state legislature, the House in Texas specifically, recommend impeachment for Ken Paxton, that is a big deal, and we'll see how it develops.
I have one more theory. It's definitely stretching it, but so look, nobody's harsher against Republican voters in all of media than me, including earlier in this show when I was livid about the violence that they're pushing. But even in my book, I wrote about the one good thing about Republican voters is they hate corruption, and so. They genuinely hate it. Now, they don't often show it because they'll give their money to Donald Trump and let him just take it, right? And not actually help Republicans with it, the Steve Bannon, etc. But Trump ran on Drain the Swamp because he knows Republican voters hate politicians who steal our money, okay? So maybe Republicans have caught wise to that and are like, hey, our voters don't really like this, and Republicans are way more responsive to their base than we are. The the left side, the Democrats, etc. Certainly the Democrats, they don't care about their base at all. So maybe they're beginning to respond and actually not tolerate some corruption. But that again, it's a fun little theory here, but I wouldn't go to the bank with that one because the Republican Party has a very, very long history of corruption. And their politicians generally love it. So we'll see, but it is a good development today.
All right, well, let's move on to some more news, including what's currently transpiring in other states. If you are interested in sending your child to schools that are more indicative of what Alex Jones would want to teach them, consider moving to Tennessee, where the Republican Speaker of the House just appointed a conspiracy theorist to oversee the state's social studies curriculum, because of course they did. Now, her name is Lori Cardoza Moore, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about her and what her beliefs are. Last week, Tennessee House Speaker Cameron Sexton announced that he had appointed Lori Cardoza Moore to serve on the Tennessee Standards Recommendation Committee to oversee social studies materials being reviewed for use in classrooms statewide. Previously, she had also been appointed by the same person, Sexton, to the Tennessee Textbook and Instructional Materials Quality Commission, which is of course in charge of what you think it would be in charge of, the recommendations for the official list of textbooks and instructional materials for approval of the State Board of Education. Now, Cardoza Moore has a long history of saying things that lunatics would say. She has called US history textbooks currently used in classrooms the greatest national security threat to the United States, okay? Which seems totally reasonable. With her new appointment, Cardoza Moore will have the power to submit final recommendations for social studies standards to the state board. Great news if you want your kids to be taught insane things. In a statement about her new position, she said this: "The materials we will be reviewing can only accomplish the mission of educating good American citizens if our Tennessee textbooks are devoid of left-aligned historic revisionism and the toxic material found in the anti-Semitic critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion, social emotional learning, and ethnic studies. Like, these are all the things that she wants to do away with because she thinks that it's actually harming kids. I didn't know that CRT is now being branded as anti-Semitic by conservatives who don't really know what CRT is.
Yeah, no, that's a joke and it's hilarious. But let's give you more insanity from this lady. She once called the Tennessee mosque a terrorist training camp. She said that 30% of all Muslims are terrorists.
And then when she was asked, "Oh, where did you get that stat from?" You know, she said, "The internets."
Oh, well, then there you go. By the way, that is 500 million people. 500 million people are apparently terrorists. I'm surprised they haven't done more damage. And by the way, when asked if she's anti-Muslim, she said, no, of course not.
Come on.
Okay, I mean, these guys, as always, a joke. Let's go to graphic 7. If you think that's funny. In 2011, Cardozo Moore claimed that former President Barack Obama was causing, quote, horrific tornadoes, of course he was, because he made a speech that discussed the plight of Palestinians.
That does lead to horrific tornadoes.
Yeah. No, she's being put in charge of children's textbooks.
You know what?
She thinks that Barack Obama caused tornadoes with his mind because he thought that Palestinians should be treated well. Like, am I supposed to respect that? Am I supposed to debate that? I mean, what do you do with that? But now among Republicans, that is considered perfectly normal. Let's put her in charge of the textbooks. Because this is not a rando. This is not we found her on Facebook. No, they put her in charge. So I got one more for you guys. I have 1,000 more, but I'll give you one more. Remember how there was that plot to kidnap the Michigan governor? Graphic 9. She said about it, am I missing something here? Didn't the founders address removing a tyrant from office in the Constitution? Michiganders, it's time to step up and defend your constitutional rights. She's defending a plot to kidnap and potentially murder the governor of Michigan, put in charge of textbooks that children are gonna read.
I know, but aren't you worried about T-shirts that Target sells and how they could harm kids?
I mean, I'm so worried about rainbows. As I said earlier in the show,
rainbows are dangerous.
I think we gotta hit Hawaii over there before they hit us over here with all their rainbows, okay? And so, but I mean,
I don't know what to do.
What do you do?
Like, what do you do with this?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, she's literally a lunatic. Look, and by the way, guys, at the same time, understand that it's easy for all of us in the rational world, et cetera, to say these things. But I know that there are tons and tons and tons of people who believe in conspiracy theories. So she is, of course, a conspiracy theorist on 9/11. She thinks, well, Al-Qaeda might have had some part to do with it, but come on, about the other. I don't even know what the rest of that sentence is. I don't know that I want to know. She believes in almost every conspiracy theory, but so do tens of millions of Americans. And so we laugh and stuff, but for a lot of people, they go, oh yeah, finally, someone sensible's in charge.
I mean, I think that it shows you, this is what happens when there's a lack of trust in our institutions, when there's a lack of trust in legacy media outlets. Look, I think what happened in the lead up to the Iraq War in 2003 is a good example of why Americans don't trust legacy media outlets. The New York Times was completely cheerleading for that preemptive war in Iraq, which American families sent their sons and daughters to fight repeatedly, repeat deployments. They come back to the United States, no real health care, no mental health care. Many of those veterans are now living on the streets, right? And who cheerleaded for that war? Who manufactured consent for that war? The same media organizations that are now puzzled about why these conspiracy theorists would much rather believe the garbage coming out of Alex Jones's mouth as opposed to what they're reporting on. That is a problem.
Yeah. She refers to herself as Lori Cardozo Moore, THD, that's for theology, but her doctorate is an honorary doctorate degree in theology from the Latin University of Theology, an unaccredited diploma mill.
Awesome.
She's being put in charge of education when she has none herself. And of course, she thought the people who did January 6th were Antifa. Of course. All right, in the post-game bonus episode for the members, we have yet another conspiracy theorist, but this one's hilarious, talking about Big Globe. Okay, you're gonna wanna hear from Flat Earth Dave. tyt.com/join or hit the join button below on YouTube. We'll see you there.
Internets.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's